Hello, welcome everyone to another episode of the Wheel Estate Show. We are your hosts, Eric Shaver
and Ryan Kelly. And today we have the opportunity of interviewing the lean, mean RV selling machine. I'm talking about George Victorine.
You worked on that a bit, didn't you?
I did a lot of it, actually.
I'm sure you did.
All night in front of the mirror. George is one of our favorite reps. He represents the Tiffin brand, and we have an awesome conversation. I mean, we were able to dive deep into multiple subjects relating to manufacturing, but there's no way we were able to get to everything in this short podcast series. We already got a verbal commitment that he's going to come back. So make sure if you have any questions during the show, write some comments below and we'll make sure to get those written up for our next interview with George. But until then, sit back, relax, and enjoy our interview with our Northwest Tiffin rep, George Victorine.
You know, wisdom and knowledge comes from hard work and over time. Mm-hmm. And so when you develop that, you know, it's just more than selling, you know, dealers at their inventory. Mm-hmm. You know, there's managing the inventory. There's making sure that the dealers are doing their job in their territory and supplying them with the product, training the salespeople. I do get involved a little bit, you know, with service where needed, support the customer. But that's what Tiffin's really all about is taking care of the customer. Mm-hmm. And we look for dealers that have that reputation that they're not only just going to sell a coach to the customer, but they're going to watch after him, make sure, you know, he's taken care of in this back end and the service end too. Mm-hmm. And that's what Tiffin's really legendary for is taking care of the customer.
Welcome to the Wheel Estate Show, brought to you by the top 50 dealer Beaver Coach Sales with your hosts, Ryan Kelly
and Eric Shaver. If you're here to learn about all things RV, you're in the right place. In this podcast, we sit down with people who build, buy, and sell RVs to bring you an in-depth look at the RV lifestyle. Welcome, George. Thank you so much for making the trip.
Glad to be here. It's been a long time with today's COVID environment to get out on the road and be with my favorite dealers, so I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, let's just jump right into it. We got a lot to cover today, so we'll jump in with kind of first question on our minds is maybe just kind of introduce yourself to our audience here. So tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in the RV industry.
Well, it's a long story.
We've got time.
I've been in the industry for over 30 years. I grew up, you know, what we call roughing it. I did a lot of camping as a kid, mostly in Northern California, along the coast and Yosemite and Guala National Park. A lot of camping. So I kind of grew up loving the lifestyle. Never had a motorhome. We eventually did get a travel trailer, but, you know, kind of grew up doing the RV lifestyle. And it just kind of morphed into, you know, I went to college in Northern California and graduated and wanted to stay in the town where I live now, although I did leave for 10 years on my sabbatical back to Indiana. But got on with Fleetwood Motorhomes in 1988.
Wow.
And they had a plant in Chico, and that's how I got started. And it just kind of interesting that I was somehow got into, it was almost destined to be, I got into the RV business, not, you know, on the business end of it. So I got my start at a ground level position as a sales coordinator, and I worked that job for a great group of people too. You know, it was a great training ground. But I got my start there, and in 1992, I moved to, they transferred me to the big mega hub of Indiana where all the RVs are made. And I started there as a Pace Aero district manager. And then things, you know, progressed and put in 10 years there. And great opportunity, learned a lot. And in right before 9/11, I got the opportunity to come back to California, which was the plan eventually, to be able to come back to California, because my wife has a career out here as well. So we made it back to California and put in another another 7 years or so with Fleetwood, and then I got the opportunity to make a change, and I got on with going from a big company like Fleetwood was a huge Fortune 500 company at that time, and then saw some things changing, and I got the opportunity to look at Tiffin motorhomes, and I really enjoyed what I saw. Different type of company, family owned, family operated at that time, and so I made the jump, and it was probably the best thing I ever did.
That's awesome.
And to go from a company like Fleetwood to Tiffin, family owned, work for Bob Tiffin has been one of the best things that I ever did.
That's awesome. That's
great.
And here I am today, 12 years later.
And so you've always been on the manufacturing side then, right?
I have.
Gotcha.
Yep, I have.
So all the ins and outs of the...
I did a little bit of selling in my earlier years, before I did consumer finance. I sold all kinds of different things. But, I've been on the wholesale side the whole time.
Wow.
He's been dealing with us punk salesmen for a couple decades then.
Yep. Probably seen a lot of dealerships across the country, I'd imagine. And
oh, yeah.
And
what I really enjoy is, I do enjoy developing and watching a dealer be successful. And there's been a lot of ups and downs in this industry over the years. The financial crisis and starting out in 2000, just shortly after I got on with, I'm so glad I went to Tiffin because we were such a strong, stable company and with a really good following, and had some great opportunities, and some ups and downs during that time. A lot of dealers weren't able to make it.
Yeah.
Right, because of the financial crisis. Mm-hmm. And so at first it looked pretty bleak. Dealers were being taken out of the business, and we were repurchasing more motorhomes than we were selling.
Wow.
But it also gave us the opportunity to really take a hard look at the markets on the West Coast and rebuild it. And so my partner and I, he handles the Southwest, I handle the Northwest, and we and that's how eventually we got here at Beaver Coach.
So how many dealers do you have in your dealer territory?
Well, there's dealers, and then there's locations.
Sure.
So some dealers have more than one location, and that's been expanding over the last couple of years. Dealers open up, and that seems like the trend lately, where dealers are really spreading out. So I have a dozen or so dealers, and then somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 locations.
Gotcha. And with that, and we know this, but for our listeners and everything, could you tell us what you do, so what your job entails as a factory rep, and what lines you cover, essentially?
So as far as what brands I cover, I sell all Tiffin Class A's. So from the Allegro Open Road, which is our premium gas coach. And then you go to the Red product, which is our lower line diesel product. The Red 340, which is relatively new. Mm-hmm. It's based on a straight rail Freightliner chassis as opposed to a stacked rail with the big basement storage. Mm-hmm. But the 340 offers pretty decent basement storage as well. It just has the rail going through the center of the basement. Mm-hmm. Then the standard Red, which is a full featured diesel pusher. Mm-hmm. And then the Breeze, which is I think one of the neatest motorhomes out on the marketplace. It's the smallest full-fledged diesel pusher in the industry. Low profile, narrow body, short. And so it's very popular out on the West. And then, of course, you got the Phaeton, #1 selling diesel pusher for many years in the industry. And then the Allegro Bus, a premier luxury diesel pusher. And then, of course, above that, which you guys have here at Beaver Coach, is the Zephyr, which is our flagship luxury diesel pusher.
Just to touch on that, I mean, what George does, that's not normal for a rep. He carries a lot. Most manufacturers really divide it up, and what we've noticed with our reps, where they carry 3 or 4 max, you carry the entire line and represent the entire line, and still keep up with dealership demands and long factory order forms and do that. So as far as caliper of rep, we think George is right up there. So yeah, I know we appreciate your expertise, and
appreciate that. Well,
that's uncommon to see that.
Wisdom and knowledge comes from hard work and over time. And so when you develop that, it's just more than selling, dealers their inventory. There's managing the inventory. There's making sure that the dealers are doing their job in their territory and supplying them with the product, training the salespeople. I do get involved a little bit, with service where needed, support the customer. But that's what Tiffin's really all about is taking care of the customer. And we look for dealers that have that reputation, that they're not only just going to sell a coach to the customer, but they're going to watch after him, make sure he's taken care of in this back end and the service end too. And that's what Tiffin's really legendary for, is taking care of the customer.
Yeah.
Well, talking about that, the experience that you grow over time, let's go back to that transition that you made. So late 80s, you're started on with Fleetwood. You spent all the 90s with them. It's early 2000s. Going from that bigger company, like you mentioned, to Tiffin, what were some of those transitions like? What's it like working for Tiffin? And what has your growth looked like from the 90s with Fleetwood into a smaller company like Tiffin?
So when you're working for a big publicly held company like that, there's a lot of structure. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of answering to the corporate structure. Whole different ball game. In 2007 is when I made the transition and decided to make the move to Tiffin. And it was a little scary at the time, because at that time, Tiffin was starting to get better recognized out in the West. It was still not a huge amount of representation out on the West Coast. We definitely had some presence out here. So I saw it as a good opportunity. It was interesting because at Fleetwood, you would have probably almost the same number of brands, but they had sister products, right? And so you'd have Flare and Storm, right? And then you'd have, so you'd have to have two different dealer representations in that marketplace. So you have the Flare guy, the Storm guy, and then one might have Bounder and the other one might have Southwind. One thing that was really refreshing with Tiffin is we just had the right dealer in a particular market, and he handled all the brands. And so it was a lot easier to handle. And I found that type of dealering penetrated the market better than having a bunch of different dealers. And the dealers were more successful, and the dealer that we had was more successful.
And on that, Eric, we've seen at different shows and stuff, dealerships that have one manufacturer for this price point, different manufacturer for this price point, different one for that standpoint.
Yeah.
So doing what you're doing,
Tiffin
that
covers
is
the whole basis.
But then, there's the other aspect of it, the whole business end. But then going from a big structured company like Fleetwood, moving to basically a family-owned company like Tiffin. At that time, we were, you're working for Bob Tiffin. Yeah. And, we had a sales manager and we had all the different reps. It was like working for the family.
Yeah.
And you could, Bob loves the sales end of the business. He likes getting out and talking to the people and come and work in shows with us. And that's one thing that Fleetwood had in the old days, back when John Crean, the founder of the company, and the Bounder motorhome and everything like that. In this business, I have found, no matter what anybody says, relationship with the customer and your frontline sales guys and your dealers and your dealer principals is a major factor. Bob always, was there for everybody. Everybody knows Bob. Anybody can call Bob, customers alike, dealers. And so we maintain that today at Tiffin.
Yeah.
And, that's a real big part of the reason, I went to Tiffin and I still love it today.
That's awesome. We love working with Tiffin. I mean, as on our side of things, we can vouch for exactly what you mean by working with a company that has that family, mindset that feels a lot like our company. Like when we call you, I mean, a great example. So you have 20 some dealers, or 20 some locations rather. Well, each one of them has a sales staff and a sales manager or several sales managers. Mm-hmm. And so you take phone calls not only from them, but from my customers. I mean, you've spoken several times, many times with my customers directly. And I think I could say, George, you've never not answered your phone. And if you haven't, it's because you're literally in the middle of, doing something where you couldn't pick it up. And then you call me back 2 minutes later. So, I mean, it's pretty cool. And it definitely gives us as sales guys all the tools and a lot of the feel of being able to go to you for support and help, which is awesome.
If you look at it, if you guys are selling something, then you need help, then I am too.
Yeah.
Right. So if I'm available, because it's not like, this type of job isn't a 8 to 5 job.
No.
Right. So there's a lot of flexibility in what we do. And so it gives you, you run your own ship. You basically, but if it's a Sunday and I'm home and I'm out doing stuff and, I got my phone with me all the time. If you need help, need a question answered, and if I'm able to answer the phone, I will. It only takes a couple minutes, and then I move on and continue doing what I was doing.
Yeah. Totally.
So that's the way I look at it.
Well, you brought up a cool thing that I'd love to, I'm going to go off script here. So don't get mad, but
whoa.
So the one point you made that I think is really fascinating that we've never really talked about, but I think would be really good for customers to hear, is you mentioned a lot of brands, Fleetwood in particular, but many of our brands that we carry will have essentially the same product, right?
Yeah,
and they'll have two sister products, where it'll be the same product, running down the same line in a lot of cases, but with a different name. Could you explain, so people can understand like why a manufacturer does that and what that looks like? Because a lot of customers, we've run into it where you have like a good example is a Thor Omni and a Thor Magnitude. It's the exact same product with a different name. A lot of people don't understand that it is the same thing, and it's not always it's case by case. Some will have differences, but if you could explain kind of why manufacturers do that.
It basically gives them more distribution points to be able to, if they have the production capacity and they can have more dealers to sell to. So,
yeah.
Example, say, like back in the day, there was Winnebago, and then there was Itasca, right? So those two brands were what we call sister products. So you'd have the Itasca guy, and then you'd have the Winnebago guy, essentially selling the same basic, the sister brands. So it gave Winnebago the opportunity to have two different distribution points within any market, and so you could build more motorhomes. And so I think looking back, in the Fleetwood days, we had the Jamboree guy and the Tioga guys, right? And they had, maybe the one had a little bit different, different color schemes on the interior, a few little different things, but basically the same floor plans and the same motorhome. So all depended on, the dealer to capture the customer and sell them the Tioga or if the Jamboree guy. And when you're at a Tiffin manufacturer, we're only going to build so many. Okay, because we're building 10 a day right now. That's not even enough right now. So we find just having one of each brand is sufficient.
And that way, to kind of touch on that, like we've experienced it as a dealer, like with Tiffin. You can only there's agreements that are made with a dealer from a manufacturer where you have a market that you sell in essentially. And so what you're saying essentially is that you can have two dealers in the same market with a different product, but it technically is the same product. But now that allows you to have, instead of having one dealer, that manufacturer can capture twice as much market share of that.
Potentially, yeah, depending on how many they sell.
True.
But even so, say take for example the Allegro.
Mm-hmm.
Allegro open road, and you'll have manufacturers out there with sister products in the same markets, but we've been able to capture more market share with just the Allegro than they have in their two lines combined.
Crazy.
Wow. That's interesting.
And what's interesting is you go to a show and now you're competing with someone who's 10 blocks down the road from you as a dealership.
Mm-hmm.
And
same.
It's tough. The only people that carry Tiffin that's close to us, they're all 3+ hours away, and they're in a different city, different market, separated by the mountains. And as a result, you don't have dealerships lapped on top of each other. It seems like it benefits the manufacturer, or in this case, maybe doesn't, by being able to flood a market with a particular product. But I like your philosophy of just build one solid product and get it to the right dealerships and just let that speak for itself.
That's exactly what it's all about. And Tiffin treats every dealer equal. We don't. Everybody pays the same price. There might be a little
That's cool.
Slight difference on certain brands between East Coast and West Coast, but it's not, because it just takes a lot more to get them out here.
Mm-hmm.
On our lower line product, the Allegro, but nothing significant. So everybody pays the same price. Everybody plays on an equal playing field.
Mm-hmm.
And we really encourage to get the best possible experience for customers to buy from their local dealer if they can, because you're going to get any dealer, if you go cross country, they know that they may not never see you again. You may get a little bit better price, but you may end up paying for it in the long run, because to get that special service from where you bought the coach is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
So to transition off of that, what we've noticed, over 60% of our business is out of state, from people who have had poor experiences at a dealership, wherever it may be, and they really focus on that service piece. In your opinion, just working with so many different dealerships, what makes a dealership a strong sales organization, and should be one that someone considers? There's
a lot of factors involved in that. It'd be their strength of their internet department and developing leads, and their sales staff, and the inventory, the brands they carry. But I find that relationship comes back into play. Take care of your customer, make sure they have a good experience, and give them good service.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It seems simple. It's simple but not easy, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. It's harder to execute, and that's something that's important for the dealer. The manufacturer can go so far, but the dealers that take care. And one thing I found cool about Tiffin is that you guys don't put up with a lot of poor behavior on a dealer's part. Like it's something that it is a two-way street. You guys sell the product, but you're represented, because the Tiffin name on the side of the coach, if those customers aren't taken care of by a dealer, you guys don't. That's why you don't take on an overabundant amount of dealers. Obviously you have to have enough product to get there, but the dealers that take care of the customer are the ones that are going to get the product and are going to get the referrals, because it falls back on all of us all through the chain, that customer's experience. But
they definitely look at that.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people listening to this podcast are people who are looking at buying an RV, or they currently have one and maybe ready to make a change. In your opinion, George, why buy a Tiffin?
Well,
and I know you're biased.
I could be biased, but it is a very unique product, in that most manufacturers are not what we call vertically integrated. So vertical integration, meaning we make all of our own components, except for refrigerators and air conditioners and that type of a component. But as far as the core content of the motorhome, luggage doors. We make our own windows. We make all of our own cabinetry is custom made. It's almost like ordering, if you ordered one, a custom motorhome, when you buy one off a dealer's lot, every piece of that motorhome was made for that particular coach. So even the roof, the sidewall glass, the front rear caps. So we're very vertically integrated, and we have the most state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment in the industry. And so that allows us, to provide a premium product for a very good price. Okay. The other thing is we have the best written warranty in the industry, but we also have a very good reputation for doing the right thing and taking care of the customer, down the road. Just ask anybody that owns one. Mm-hmm. The stories are out there.
Yep. And they keep buying Tiffins. It seems that once you're a Tiffin owner, it doesn't matter what you buy, you're going to buy. The next thing is going to be a Tiffin as well,
mm-hmm.
which
Absolutely.
is cool. So you touched on something there too. This is unique to Tiffin that I've found as a dealer is your pricing structure, and the way that how most manufacturers, and I'd love to get your take on why Tiffin does this, but most manufacturers will have a pricing structure where they'll have an MSRP and then what's called MAP, minimum advertised pricing, for some of our customers who've seen that out there. So you'll get a coach on the lot and it'll immediately be marked down $100,000 or $80,000 or whatever the manufacturer determines that pricing to be. In your guys' case, there's one price, and it's across the board. You have your MSRP, and that is it. And so from a manufacturer's perspective, why would you guys choose to do that instead of doing a MAP pricing?
Well, we do have a MAP pricing policy, but basically it is that all coaches need to be advertised in print or in the internet for the current model year at MSRP. No one can advertise below MSRP. And if we see it out there, then we have to react and ask that sometimes there's mistakes made, and we have to ask that be corrected. After the next model year is introduced, and we start shipping that next model year product, then we send out notification that you could advertise, below MSRP to help. You're getting in the new product and you have some of the previous model year product sitting in your inventory. You could advertise that below MSRP. But we usually don't have our brand, luckily, and thank God, is so popular. You don't have a lot of previous model year model year product. Mm-hmm. We don't build unfinished goods, sit them in the yard and sell them. We build to sold orders.
So is all your stuff pre-sold before
everything
you start
that
building?
We build is when it comes offline, we expect a PO and it's going to ship.
So it's either going to a customer or a dealership.
To a dealer, yes.
That's great. So you don't flood the market with inventory and then do weird stuff on pricing and none of that.
It's all pretty consistent.
That's awesome.
It's really important.
And that helps the customer too, because you don't have a coach that sat for, and as we know, sitting for a coach is one of the worst things that can happen to it. It seems like most times whenever we have issues with motorhomes, it's because they've sat for too long.
So what is your definition of roughing it smoothly? That's been Tiffin's tagline and their motto for years, and you got a whole magazine around it. What does that mean for you,
goes,
George?
With the wherever you go, we go slogan. So roughing it smoothly is being able to take your home with you, your luxury with you, depending on, whatever brand you choose, whatever your budget can afford, and go out to the great outdoors, whether it be on the coast or up in the mountains, and you have all the amenities of home wherever you go. So you're going to rough it, but you're going to rough it very smoothly.
Do it in style.
And I guess it could be, mean different things to different people, but that's what it means to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about you?
I will say, sitting right here in this recliner chair, doing this talk, if it was any warmer in here, or if I had any less coffee, it'd be nap time.
So you can recline that thing back.
You do make a really. We actually had it reclined back, and Jared, our producer, right behind the camera, made us put it back up.
Didn't look good. That's
Probably a
fair.
good thing.
That's
I
fair.
could actually do the same thing on this chair right here.
Yeah.
We could I'll just lay back. So we have one thing that you mentioned. So selling motorhomes to a dealer as well as to a direct customer. We call them on a dealer side. We call them a factory order, and it's something when we take a factory order from a customer, they sit and spec it out and everything. Obviously, timelines have changed. It used to be between 2 and 3 months that a product could be produced. What does a timeline? If one of our customers that's listening wanted to order a Tiffin Red or a Tiffin Allegro bus, what does that timeline look like, and what would they expect in today's world?
It fluctuates depending on the demand, how many orders that we have in the system, how many we're building a day or a week. And so, we monitor that. We'll talk about lead times. Pretty much we have a weekly national sales call where we all have, now instead of doing it over the phone, we do it over, a Zoom call or a Citrix conference call.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll go over that and we'll say, hey, we're out, right now we're out 14 to 16 weeks based on, how many orders we have in house, how many retails that need to be scheduled. Like right now when you place an order, there's putting the order in the system and then there's getting it scheduled, meaning it's on the production schedule. Mm-hmm. So right now you're probably looking at, I encourage people if they're looking to make a purchase right now to get it in the system because it's going to take 3 to 4 weeks before it'll even get on the schedule. Mm-hmm. And then from there it's, 10 weeks or so, depending on the brand, to get it, from scheduling, because when it's scheduled, that's when they start building all the parts and pieces. Mm-hmm. Every little piece down to, the hinges on the luggage doors, all those things are being built. Mm-hmm. All the cabinets for this coach, everything that, the countertops, everything is, so it takes about that amount of time to get it all together and put it on the coach as it comes down the production line.
It seems like...
And then now, though, too, you got to consider with what we call supply chain issues.
Yeah.
We're running into that, and people get... I understand you have plans, you want your coach, but right now, furniture is a big problem because we had a major supplier to the industry pull out. COVID hit, so the getting sofas and driver passenger chairs has been a big issue. So it's held up coaches, a couple more weeks, depending on the brand and what, like these driver passenger chairs have been a big problem. So customers are waiting for the coach, but it got held up for a couple more weeks because of those, what we call supply chain issues, so shortages. Mm-hmm. So that's been a big struggle for all manufacturers. For everybody.
Yeah.
Well, what I appreciate about a comment that you said before, you only roll it out when the product's done. We've had some manufacturers where we'll just roll out this run without AC units, or this run we're just going to roll it out and kind of patch it together. You guys have done a good job of, it takes longer, but
it takes a lot of work
you
on
do it right.
Our purchasing department and all of our purchasing agents, to get what we need. There's a lot of wheeling and dealing and going to different sources, to get what we need. Mm-hmm. And we've been pretty blessed to be able to keep up with everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What surprised me when I went out and visited Tiffin and we did a factory tour, it actually doesn't take that long to build an RV. It seems like the longest part is you got to build all the stuff for it and order the furniture and order the TVs. You get everything. Once you
it'll go through the plant, because we build our own chassis too. It's called the Power Glide. Mm-hmm. So, they have to build that first, right? And then they build the cabinetry and they build the luggage doors, they build the windows, everything's built for that coach. So once it enters the main plant, where they're going to start putting the floor on, the holding tanks, all that stuff, it'll go through the plant in 5 days.
Nuts.
Yeah. Right? But then, after it comes out of the plant, then it's prepped and then it goes over to the paint facility. And then what we call final finish and final detail. So they, over there in the paint process, it takes as long to go through paint as it does to build the coach, because it's a lot of prepping, and then they have to put on all the awnings and the mirrors and all the trim pieces. rain test it, and everything like that.
Well, keep going on the paint, because most manufacturers, they have an outside company that comes in and paints their units. You guys own your own paint shop?
Yep.
And describe what that looks like.
Figure, oh man, it's as big as it's a big giant. We had it custom built. Bob did back in, I want to say it was there when I was there. So maybe starting back in 2005.
Okay.
I'd have to look back for the exact date. But it is a state-of-the-art paint facility in Belmont, Mississippi. It's right across the state line. And we have state-of-the-art, probably at least 15 state-of-the-art downdraft paint booths, what they would have in a automobile factory. So they're downdraft. And it was quite a project at that time.
What's the advantages with the downdraft?
But they had to trench down, I don't know how many feet into the ground, and then a big, huge culvert for the downdraft, so that basically sucks all the debris down underneath. So it doesn't, there's updrafts, there's side drafts, and the downdraft is the best. That's what Bob wanted, because all the dust and debris goes down below and is exhausted out under the ground, basically. Wow. And so it was a big investment, and we have 15 of those booths, and then some of them are for, they're heated because you have to bake them after you paint them.
Clear coat.
And clear coat, and so there's quite a process involved in painting one coach, and we're doing 10 of them a day.
Yeah. And
there's different levels of paint. So your Allegro, your red product, and the Breeze is basically is what we call, it's not twice baked or super clear. There's 2 coats of clear and it's baked, and that's done. But then when you go to the Phaeton and the Bus, those are what we call twice baked. So they lay the color on, and that's a heck of a process right there with all the masking and getting the color on. And when it's first painted, it's dull. It's not shiny at all. And they put 3 coats of clear on, and they bake it. Then they actually go, and there's a lot of talk about, cutting and buff the edges and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But Tiffin really will sand off 1 layer of clear and apply 2 more and then bake it again.
Wow.
And that's your twice baked or super clear.
Wow.
Lot to it.
There is a lot to it. Well,
it's a pretty impressive facility.
It is. Tiffin. It's your entire manufacturing facility alone is impressive to see what you guys do, because there's a lot of different styles of manufacturing out there, but you guys have had a lot of the same buildings for a lot of years, and the way it's produced. You were telling all of our staff a little bit earlier about the process of a Tiffin and what makes them different, and I'd love to drill down a little bit more specifically, because you said in essence it's almost a custom coach.
Exactly.
Because the cabinets are manufactured. Could you tell us a little bit about you don't have to go into too much detail, but give us a little overview of what you order that Tiffin. So we put in that factory order. What happens from there? How is a Tiffin coach built?
So customer orders the coach the way they want it. They want a certain decor, they want a certain furniture arrangement, they want a certain paint scheme, mm-hmm. and they pick from our option list. What it is for this coach had the theater seating, it had a booth dinette, it had the sofa bed across from over here, it has the drop down bunk. So they order this coach, whether it be the customer or the dealer, mm-hmm. the options that they want. So it goes into the system, and once it's scheduled, mm-hmm. then the plant starts building all the components, right? And those components are made for that coach. So the roof, it's labeled, the serial, the order, what we call the windshield number, the last 4 digits of the Tiffin serial number are on that roof. Same thing with, we call it cell construction. So that galley right there is a cell. Mm-hmm. That drawer is for that galley, and that whole cell will be labeled for this motorhome. Right. So same thing with the luggage doors. They build all the luggage doors for one coach. All of them have that coach's serial number on there. They're windshield number. And so throughout the whole facility, all these parts and pieces are being made. And it's just in time production process. So as that coach comes in, we made the chassis, maybe it's a Power Glide chassis, the chassis has been made. So it comes into the main plant and it rolls in. And so all those components that we built, the wiring harness, the windows, everything, as it goes through the plant, all those components come to that particular coach as it rolls in position, and all those components start to be installed. And each station, there's a number of stations it goes through. All the components come in, they're unloaded, and they're installed on the coach. So you can say, it's kind of a custom built coach.
Yeah.
Except we don't do them. We do it one at a time, but we do, like 10 in one day.
And in opposed to that, with other manufacturers, they'll build a galley and they'll have 10 galleys sitting there.
Yeah.
And a coach rolls down the line, and then they grab a galley, slap it in.
Like Oprah, you get a galley, you get a galley.
Galleys for everybody.
You get a galley.
Yeah, so they're cabinet chops, and everything, everything we build is all solid elder wood.
Yeah.
We don't use vinyl wrap, or it's all solid wood, and everything up to the bus and the Zephyr are solid cherry.
That's awesome. What's cool about that is, like you mentioned, being more of a custom coach. That means every single piece of wood in here is fit for this coach. So the fitment is going to be excellent because it's specific.
And all the staining, everything was stained at the same time and finished at the same time for this coach.
Yep. Yeah, so you don't have inconsistencies. That's a great point.
Yeah.
Instead of finishing one piece and then it sits for 10 days and ages differently, that's a great point. I mean, that's a pretty cool feature of a Tiffin coach about how they're built.
Yeah.
And that's one thing you might find too is wood, as it ages, the hue and the tone of the wood might change a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So you might say a customer breaks a cabinet door.
Yep.
And they need a new overhead cabinet door.
Yeah.
Well, we'll stain it exactly how it was when the unit was built.
Sure.
Right.
But then it comes in and it's like, oh, it doesn't match. So I've had, what they tell me is you basically take that door, or if it's depending on the weather, but it's sunny here, you just put it in like in a lit room with a sun exposure, and that'll help speed up the aging, so it'll eventually match
to catch up with a 3-year-old RV. Wow, I never thought of that.
That makes sense. Specifically, probably more with the lighter natural tones, I'd imagine, than a darker tone wood. But
like our honey glazed cherry and
fascinating.
amber glazed.
Interesting.
That's kind of cool. I never thought about it. That's a great point. But if you do break some, well, that's something too that Tiffin can do, is you can reproduce a product that was made.
That's another great point. Yeah, because it's interesting. When I first started, I went through the door plant. So we make all our luggage doors and entry doors, and depending on the brand. And so I looked over, and there was these old doors that looked like they've been sitting there forever. I said, what are those two doors over there, Bob? And he said, well, those are 1972 Allegro entry doors.
Wow. What?
I'm like, wow, why is there two of them? He goes, well, because it always comes in twos.
Really?
You need one, you need another one. So we always got a couple there for 1972 so that, we could, they could build, components, because we're, a lot of manufacturers, you only can get parts for 5 years or, a short period of time. But since we build everything ourselves, we could get parts for older coaches.
Yeah.
I think that's the difference between an RV manufacturer, a true manufacturer who builds these units, than an RV assembler. A lot of places, they're
assemblers,
call themselves
exactly.
manufacturers, but really everything's built out somewhere else and they just assemble it all.
Yeah.
And at some factories I've been to are absolutely spotless.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing. What's cool about going to Tiffin is you see the guys, they're making the woodwork right there. There's some sawdust on the ground. You see CNC machines just going like crazy, drilling stuff out. There's so much activity and things happening. It's not just a clean, quiet facility where they're just putting stuff together.
Yeah, we're actually making it.
It's pretty cool.
And it's spread out too. I mean, there's 2 fiberglass plants. There's the window plant. There's, the supply chain is pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, being vertically integrated, like you mentioned, it's like you have a cabinet shop. You don't outsource to a cabinet shop. You have a fiberglass
manufacturers buy their cabinet doors.
Yeah.
And you're limited to, okay, so it's those cabinets have to be all the same, We have probably, as far as storage goes, that's one of the other big things about Tiffin. Our storage is well utilized, and it's probably, especially overhead storage, is the best there is out there. They're deep, big overhead cabinets, and we make our own doors so that we could maximize the space.
Yeah, totally. And it makes the after that. We talk about the manufacturing, but the after sale component of that. So when the actual ownership of a Tiffin RV is different than another RV, it's something I've noticed with one of my customers who's now buying a Tiffin, actually a Tiffin Zephyr that he's ordered. So he had an experience with another manufacturer who I won't name, and they're more of a component builder where, okay, well, he calls in and, okay, well, not, we didn't make that part, so you got to call this guy and you got to call that. And that's something that is so different with you guys. You call Tiffin and you guys help and that's it. It's just, there's one-stop shop. And it's so much nicer when you're on the road and you have an issue that you can get something taken care of.
Well, that's the thing, roughing it smoothly, or wherever you go, we go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, when Bob decided to have his own chassis, he wanted to be able to take care of the customer from not just, the coach, but the chassis too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we'll bend over backwards, to do things. We're a lot easier to get hold of and take care of you than, some of these other bigger companies.
Totally.
Sure. Totally. Now let's transition here. RV industry as a whole, it's on the rise right now. I mean, there's so many people. The supply and demand has never been this huge before, of people wanting to get into the RV industry. A lot of first timers.
Absolutely.
What do you think is causing that drive right now?
Well, obviously, business has been good the last couple of years, but with the COVID crisis, the COVID pandemic, and people not being able to travel and trying to, still wanting to get out and do something, and RVing is the perfect way to do it. You could isolate safely, and it has driven the RV business through the roof. And you see a lot of, even in big motorhomes, a lot of people for their first time purchase, and you guys are probably seeing that in your sales department, where people are buying, their first RV and they're going right to a motorhome. And so it's a double-edged sword, because we have such a huge demand now, but because of like we're talking about, supply chain problems, you can't build enough to keep up. You only can make so many a day, because you're restricted a little bit on certain things that you do have to, like furniture, I was telling you. And so I think we're in for a good, all those folks that bought trailers, they're entering the RV lifestyle for the first time, they're going to love it, and then they're going to move up, keep moving up into, maybe they'll get a fifth wheel, maybe a Van Lee fifth wheel next, or maybe a Wayfarer Class C, and then they move into...
Nice plug. I like that. I see what you did there.
They move into, maybe they'll get an Allegro, and, wow, and then they're going to get a diesel pusher, So I see a great future.
Yeah.
And I think the RVIA and RVDA project, good run for a number of years.
Definitely. I think we're feeling the same thing. It's on the rise, and more people are loving the lifestyle for sure. So, what is one myth that you run into, and maybe it be at shows or from customers? What is one myth that you hear in the RV industry all the time?
You're never going to have any trouble.
That's a good one. Sure. It's going to be perfect.
You're going to be like buying it's not like buying a brand new Toyota, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're buying a house on wheels, and that's the key right there. You got to let people know. I mean, we do the best we can to build the best product that we can, every single one of them. But I mean, there's just no two ways around it. There's going to be problems, and you got to let them know. But we're going to be there to take care of you, and that's the key.
Yep.
We brought that up in our last podcast about why you should or should not buy an RV.
Yeah.
So there, like you said, I mean, there's an earthquake going.
There's
down the
a
road.
lot of stuff going on in an RV, and we're trying to take, a lot of the consistent problems you see in, with the new technology and the refinements, a lot of those problems of yesterday are going away, but they're getting a lot more complicated too, than all the
That's
new
true.
technologies, making them better and better and more sophisticated. And, wiring problems are a thing of the past because we have multiplexing now. And, more functional. And so we try to refine them and get rid of, a lot of the problems, but, there's always going to be a problem.
We hear that, everyone. You hear it from someone other than us. Your RV will at times have some problems and stuff, but your dealership and your manufacturer are here to help.
And I'm not saying major problems that you can't use it. It's just, little things.
Most of the time, it's just that little RV stuff.
Well, it's good to have realistic expectations.
Yeah.
And that's just understanding it's part of the industry. It's not unit specific. I think oftentimes people get kind of one track minded where it's like it's this rig. It's not. It's all of them, and it's not just your brand. It's every brand.
Yep.
And it's just it's a house on wheels. I have issues with my house and it doesn't even move. Things break in my house, so it's going to happen in an RV.
So it really all boils down to how you take care of the problem.
Yeah. 100%.
And I have to say, the people in Red Bay in our service department, we have a huge, that's one of other Bob's big babies is our big parts and service department. Where we have big RV park where, people traveling through, they can come in and get taken care of. But they're really good there. There's some great people there that, they care, and, they'll send parts to people that are stranded or need something right away. It's hard to find these days.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Most manufacturers will send it to a dealer,
Right.
and they'll say if you can get to this dealer or that. But you guys work so directly with the customers; it's really amazing. And I'm glad you brought up the service at the factory, because that's something that is really rare in my understanding. And not a lot of factories do that and have a specific shop just for your customers to go back and get stuff worked on. And that's pretty cool. We have so many customers that say, I'm making my trip to Red Bay, and within a couple of years of ownership, a big part of it is to see the factory, but also they can get taken care of directly by the guys who built it, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a unique thing. It's a we have a big RV park, like I said, and it's got the it's, if you ever have been down there, it's it's a different part of the country. It's a fun place to go. People are super nice, and they're set up to take care of customers. Depending on the time of year you go there, it could be really crowded, but that's what people do. They're going to go across. And when you come a seasoned RVer, right? Some people think we'll just bring it on. Bob, the company thinks, I'll just bring it on by. We'll take care of it. And you're like, what do you mean? It's 2,000 miles away, right? And
Sure.
So to some people, but to a seasoned RVer, going by the plant on the way across to Florida is no big deal.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
But if the customer is not willing to bring it down to the factory, we'll make accommodations.
Yeah, you guys have stepped up big time. We appreciate that. Well, normally we would transition right into our lightning round, but before we do that, I know that our audience would kill us if we didn't ask you this question specifically, because it's
what do we
on
got?
everyone's mind. The question's coming. So Thor bought out Tiffin Motorhomes. What stayed the same? What's different? What's that transition look like? And what's your thoughts on all of it?
Like, first of all, I can tell you this: everybody just put your mind at ease. Okay, nothing has changed at Tiffin. We're a little bit surprised, but I think it's for the future growth of the company and all the new things and innovations coming down the road. It was a good move, I think, for Tiffin and for the entire industry. Everybody's taken it as a big positive. We have a big company conglomerate like Thor that will support us in our capital expenditures and expansions to refine and make our product better, increase production capacities. And they're a holding company. Thor isn't just this, motorhome company that is going to take over and change everything. They own a lot of companies. They own, I always use Airstream as a good example, or Jayco is another company they own. Thor Motor Coach, that's just a division of Thor. It's its own entity. Thor Motor Coach is its own entity. They own trailer manufacturers, and they're a holding company. They let those companies run independently. And I have seen absolutely seamless, zero change. Bob Tiffin, we're maybe not family owned anymore, but we're still family operated. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So Bob Tiffin's there, Dan Tiffin's there, Tim Tiffin's there. Our service department's the same. No policy changes at all. It's been, and the guys that I talk to in the industry that, like some of the other reps that work for those companies, they say it's great. You're going to love it. They let you do, and in fact, I had a conference call. Bob Martin, the owner, the CEO of Thor, was on our conference call, and he goes, this is a great move, for us, and Tiffin's not broken, so we're not going to, we just want you guys to be successful, and we're here to support. So
that's awesome.
It's good,
Yeah.
We've seen it with Jayco because we carried Integra before they got bought out by Thor. Thor bought Jayco, and then with that Integra. And from a sales side, we've experienced zero change. It's all the same people that we talk to there. We just literally haven't noticed any change, except for the change of the technology on the inside. That's moved away. It moved up with Digital Dash and things like that. It kind of by being bought by Thor, it's given them an opportunity to jump up a little bit in technology. You guys already have had, Digital Dash and the touch screens and all that. So being able to use their buying power and their access to that technology developments and all that, it's great. Is there any kind of that technology coming down the pipeline that people should keep an eye out for?
Yeah, there is. There's stuff that we're working on, but I'm sworn to secrecy.
I tried so hard to get it out of them.
Worth a shot.
No, that's the other thing, that they came through our facilities and they see what we're capable of. Mm-hmm. We have like I was saying, we have some of the most state-of-the-art manufacturing equipment there is that's available. Like even our paint facility and laser-guided plasma cutters and all computerized and mini CNC routers. So there's innovations that are going to be coming, just like everything else down the road. But they don't really share a lot of that stuff with us.
Sure.
Until we need to know.
So do you expect the first flying Tiffin to be 2025 or 2026?
You would think everything we got on them now, with 360 cameras and adaptive cruise control, these things are going to be driving themselves.
Yeah. You'll just be taking a nap.
Is that foreshadowing?
I heard it. That's 5 shadowing.
Is that Elon Musk?
I like what you said there, though, that Thor didn't buy Tiffin because they were broken.
Yeah.
It's already a great company that's a well-oiled machine, and it's just now part of their
If anybody's interested, on our Tiffin website, if you scroll down, there is a video of Bob and Bob Martin, the CEO of Thor, and Bob Tiffin talking about the merger, and
cool.
It's a good video. I'd recommend you watch it.
Good to know.
Great point.
Good to know.
Shall we move to our favorite round?
Yes, the lightning round.
The lightning round. The lightning round is where we ask the same questions to every rep or guest that's on the show. So we're just going to rapid fire right through these and just give us your thoughts on the matter.
Sounds good. Let's rock and roll. Okay, what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the RV industry right now?
Right now is it's like we talked, supply chain.
Okay.
Easy.
Getting product.
Right? We talked on that.
Yeah.
Where do you see the future of the RV industry going?
I see it going to, with the move to, cleaner energy, and we're already having, reacting with our emission controls on our diesels, every so many years, changes in green energy and everything like that. Down the road, maybe we'll see some smaller electric motorhomes.
Interesting.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah. The way it transitions to our next one, what are some exciting things Tiffin is doing right now that you can fill us in on? So maybe perhaps upgrades or model year changes, anything that you can tell us that's exciting that's happening for the future at Tiffin.
Well, with our Power Glide chassis, we're just introduced on the bus. we've got a whole bunch of great new stuff on the Paraglide chassis, but we have the 360 cameras, which are like on your car. So now when you're going down the road, you could see all around your coach. And we just got our blind spot monitor, which was a little delayed, but we got the blind spot monitor just like your cars have, so you could be alerted if if you're going to change lane, there's someone in your blind spot. And we have On Guard is part of that. So we have it's called On Guard. So you have adaptive cruise and you have collision mitigation. So if there's potential object in front of you, the coach will alert, there'll be an alert, and it will slow down.
Not collision avoidance.
Not collision. It's not going to, totally avoid a collision and swerve out of the way or anything like that. It will slow down to where you are alerted and you can stop.
4,000-pound car, 40,000-pound RV, they're going to stop at different speeds.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so that's probably, along with, all the new controls for the dash are like your jack pad and all that's now right at the touch of your fingers on the dash.
Yeah.
Right. And you have a digital dash.
Super cool.
So all new innovations are pretty awesome.
That's exciting. Enough
to make somebody want to upgrade, right?
Yeah. Hey, perfect time. What are the odds of that?
He's good. Are you sure you haven't been on the retail side?
I've just been around it a lot.
That's true.
Well, George, you and your family, you're in your Tiffin motorhome. You're going to go out camping. Give me the top 3 places you're taking your family on a camping trip.
Top 3 places. Well, let's see. Probably go to Mount Rushmore.
Okay.
Right. I'm going to go to Yosemite. And I'm going to go to Yellowstone.
Very cool.
Interesting.
Very cool.
Do some hiking.
And you know what else I'd like to do is I'd like to go up into British Columbia, up to Alaska.
Oh, man.
I'd like to go through there, do that.
Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh, man. That'd be
amazing. I want to do that. And then we used to do a lot of it when we were able to get a demo.
Oh, yeah.
These days, it's hard to get a demo because it's everything is demand. But back in the old days, we'd take a coach and go. When I was in Indiana, we'd go up to the Upper Peninsula, Mackinac Island, and go all through there. That was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Do you do any fishing? What are some of your hobbies outside of
I like to snow ski.
Okay.
And I like to fish. I like to backpack.
Good deal.
Yeah.
So in British Columbia, you can go up to Whistler and do some.
Oh
stuff.
yeah.
Now these motorhomes are winter ready, right?
They're winter ready. I wouldn't recommend change, but yeah, they're winter ready.
You can keep them warm.
Fully capable of 4-season use.
Good deal.
We're the best insulated coaches out there.
That's truth.
Yeah, you did a good job touching on that in our training earlier today.
Yeah, big time. Big time.
Well, cool. Well, George,
awesome.
We could sit around and do this all day long because, and we do. We call you up all the time with questions, and it seems like every time we call for a question, we're on the phone for 10 minutes just catching up and BS, and so appreciate that about you. But thank you so much for being on our show, George.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Sounds good. We'll see you down the road.
Down the road.
Wow, what a great conversation, Ryan, don't you think? Oh, I forgot. He is picking up a customer from the airport because that is just the kind of service that we give you at Beaver Coach Sales. When you pick up your new RV, we'll pick you up from the airport, we'll get you a coffee, and we'll make sure that your experience getting your new RV is the best it can possibly be. Hope you enjoyed this conversation with George Victorine of Tiffin Motorhomes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you down the road.